Good evening, Ridgecrest Talk. Your host Paul VenderWerf, and we have some distinguished visitors today from Kernville. Looking at this getup, we got to find out what's going on here. We got Rockin' Rex Hinkie, and we got Jelly Belly Joel Walling. And Rex, why don't you start off? Tell us a little bit. What are you doing here with this getup you got on?
Well, I was minding my own business up on my tent. I'm a gold miner, and I was sound asleep, and Jelly come up and says, "Rex, we got to come to Ridgecrest," and I didn't even have time to get my clothes on. He said, "Get your boots and hat, we're leaving." So that's why I'm dressed up like this.
Well, I guess the show has to go on, so we're happy you made it. And Joel, next time you put a note, make sure he gets all the clothes ready before you get on the horses and come on over.
I'll throw rocks at him beforehand. That way it'll remind him that he needs to get dressed.
Right, and for folks who aren't sure what in the world's going on at KZGN tonight, we're getting ready to celebrate in February Whiskey Flat Days. And we got a couple gentlemen here that are coming over, and there's just a lot of tradition and history that we're going to talk about. But first, let's kind of get to know you two a little bit. Rex, where did you grow up? What's your history with the Kern Valley?
Well, I was born in Old Kernville in 1949, and after the dam was built, my dad worked for Edison, and after the dam was built, we had to move to Van Nuys, back down to San Fernando Valley. And then for there, we moved up to Placerville for about 7 years, then back down to San Fernando Valley, and I graduated from Cleveland High School in Reseda. And right after that, joined the Navy and for 4 years, and got married, and lived in the valley for another couple of years. And in 1976, moved up to the state of Washington, about midway between Portland and Olympia, a little town called Oakville. And stayed there for 36 years. And when I had worked at this farm store the whole time, and was customer service, kind of the guru who could solve anybody's problems there in the store. And when it came time to retire, I thought, well, I'm 62, I can make a little bit more money than I'm working, so that was a no-brainer for me. And where I was going to go didn't know. So one day I was walking down the aisle going to the office, and I swear to God, there was a little voice on my shoulder, and I heard it. It says, "Go to Kernville." And so I said, that's a no-brainer.
So you're back where you started.
Back where I started.
But now, for people who aren't familiar, 1949 was before the dam was built and the lake was filled.
Correct.
Your hometown is really in the lake now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so that's really coming full circle, or I guess you're making a big splash on your way
Making
back.
a big splash.
And
right.
Joel, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I also was born in Old Kernville. I was born in 1948, about 8 months before Rex was. And we were both born delivered by the same Dr. Burroughs. And my dad had the same thing. The Edison shut down, and he moved to Los Angeles, but down in Hawthorne area, and worked for the telephone company. And from there, when I was probably a sophomore in high school, we moved to Simi Valley. I graduated there. I enlisted and went in the Army for 3 years, spent some time in Vietnam, and then when I came back, I went to Reading in about 1972, and I was there till a year ago. And in the meantime, I went to Washington for about 8 years and worked in construction up there, mostly construction, logging, and what have you. And then I came back to Reading, and then I got ill and got cancer, and wound up going to Loma Linda to their proton treatment therapy there. And while I was there, I was coming to Kernville, and Kernville has always been, close to my heart. We came here in the 60s to utilize the lake, and skied and went to the Whiskey Flat Days back in the old days. And so when I kept going back every weekend, while I was going through my treatments to Kernville, and everything just sort of worked out, and I thought, you know what, I think that's where I'm going to end up. So once all the treatment was done, I went back to Reading and tied up all my business and came back to Kernville and ran into this guy.
So talk about long-term therapy. You're up there in a beautiful area.
Oh, yeah.
And again, you're looking right back at the lake for those roots of where you were born also.
Oh, yeah. I went down through the old Kernville because the lake's so low that old Kernville is exposed now. And you can still see the old church foundation for the Methodist Church. The old elementary school foundation is still there. And it was pretty enlightening. It was pretty cool being down there. And then friend of mine, Barbara, his sister, she showed me where Doc Barrows' house probably was back then, and where me and Rex both got to stand there, and this is where we were born. You know, this is where we came out. It's where our spirits came into our bodies, and I think that's where I'm going to let it go when time comes.
And people don't realize we always have droughts and times with more water. People get up there now, they're going to get to see the water lower and see some things at the lake that they're not going to see in another 10 years from now, probably.
Correct.
They'll be able to see the old weirs. It's visible. There's parts of some farms that are visible now. I think there was a friend that took some pictures of what appeared to be where an old pig farmer used to have, and these were where the pigs, you know, were corralled or whatever. And which is pretty interesting. And the old weir where they derouted the water from the river to places
the
unknown, and so it's pretty cool to go down there. You can explore. The museum has tours, and I'm pretty sure they might be doing a tour during the Whiskey Flat Days. They can get to catch a tour.
Right, and just for everybody to know, Whiskey Flat Days is always in February.
Yes.
This year it's the 13th through the 16th, Friday through Monday, which the 2 President's Days here in town. The kids have the school days off on Friday and Monday.
Right.
So if you can't make it up the whole time, they can still get up there for a day or two and enjoy a lot of the stuff going on. And one thing you mentioned is the museums are going to be having maybe some tours, and you can get in and see some of the history. But there's always so much activity, which we're going to talk about some more.
Yes.
But you two guys are running for mayor, and we just had a mayor election here. But your mayor election is a little bit different. How does that work?
Well, got to be careful because a lot of times politicians can be bought. People vote for us, but the way they vote for us is they give us their money. And the reason they do that is because it's all about raising money for charity. So our charities are the Nui Kuni Indian Culture Center and Keepers of the Kern. And so there's ways, the way we get elected, if you win, you raise the most money for your charity. And you have different ways of doing that. You can buy bribes for $1, and it puts you in a drawing for a $500 shopping spree in the Kern River Valley. Or you can buy, we have raffle items that we raffle off, and you have a better opportunity to win something. And all that money you collect, whether it's a donation, a sponsor, a bribe, a raffle, all gets collected into the total amount of money raised for your charity.
Okay, we're going to have to go to break. We're going to be right back. Ridgecrest Talk with Paul VenderWerf with the Keepers of the Kern coming right back after this message. All right, well, we're back on the air with Ridgecrest Talk. This is Paul VenderWerf talking with our co-mayor candidates for the Whiskey Flat Days, and what they're doing is you're voting. You can actually, people from Ridgecrest can go up to Whiskey Flat Days and actually vote for the mayor, and it's raising money for the nonprofits in the community.
Right.
And here, Rockin' Rex is supporting Keepers of the Kern. Let's talk about Keepers of the Kern for a minute. That's a great group keeping the river clean. Why don't you talk? What is the area, and how have you guys managed to keep that river cleaned up?
Well, geez, we do it with a lot of volunteers. Last year, of course, last year was the first year that we did it. We formed it last October 2013. So when we started it. And then in a matter of months, it was already gaining momentum. We were working with the Forest Service. And so we had our first really cleanup in February, and we managed to stay on it. During the season, we went out 3 days a week. Well, last year we put in 2,800 hours. Here I go. Sorry, folks. I get pretty emotional. Because I'm really attached to this river. And probably because I was born here. I don't know. This is every time I talk about this is what I do. So it's just who I am.
Might be the only way we're going to get more water in that river. Right
Yeah,
now.
it might be.
So 2,800 hours.
2,800 volunteer hours with over 200 people.
And you've raised what, $25,000?
Last year we raised $25,000. $18,000 of that was raised specifically to go to extra dumpsters and porta potties. We had one gentleman, Gregory Ward was his name, donated $8,600. He sponsored 5 dumpsters and 5 porta potties because it's $1,700 for the season for both of them together. And the local businesses and some private entities, people got together, and we ended up, in addition to what the Forest Service puts out at these undeveloped campgrounds, we put 11 extra dumpsters and 13 extra porta potties. In fact, Kern River Brewery had a special fundraiser for us on one Sunday. It was from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight. All the proceeding was to Keepers of the Kern, and they raised almost $4,400. So they sponsored, it was like 2 dumpsters and 3 porta potties. So the community has just really gotten behind this. Yeah. And Mr. Ward is going to donate that money again, the same amount.
And that's the real key. And talking Ridgecrest, we have a community project here, Ridge Project, which tries to keep the community cleaned up. Right. But you're talking about a combination of the people coming up from the weekends from San Fernando Valley and LA have created a nonprofit to support the funding. You've got the Forest Service who's saying, we don't have enough resources to not have the community involved. So you have the Forest Service partnering, and then you have the local businesses and residents not just donating their money, but also contributing all those hours to come down. And really that's the key, because when the community cleans up the river and cleans up the area, it's going to stay clean. Because that little kid who's out there fishing or something who helped clean is going to say, hey, wait a minute. You guys clean up after yourself, because I'm the one who helped clean that up last weekend.
And the whole thing is to pass it on to the next generation. And one of the things I found when I'm out picking up trash and what have you, campers, they're kids and campers. They see us doing it, and they go out and they want it. We've had kids come up and say, "Can we help? Can we help?"
Exactly.
And they're out there helping out.
Cool.
We give them the clippers and the bags, and it's just really incredible what the campers as well as all the volunteers and what have you are joining in to keep this river clean.
And they got the same motivation, because they're coming up to Kernville because it's a great place to get away from the city.
Exactly.
And it really ties in well.
Yeah, and the Kern River, and a lot of people may not know this, it's a designated wild and scenic river. The Kern River has one of the most biodiverse rivers in the United States, with the trees and the plants and the birds and the fish. And so it's time people take care of it. And because of what keepers have done, we noticed a shift in what people were doing, the campers were doing. We noticed when we first started cleaning up the campgrounds after they would leave, we would find a lot of trash. People just leave it, and we'd have to pick it up, and dispose of it. Towards the end of the season, because of our presence there, because of Facebook, Facebook is huge. People are becoming more aware of, hey, this is not a cool thing. Let's not leave our trash. Let's put it in a bag. We saw a huge shift. People were putting their trash in the trash bag and bringing it to the dumpsters. There just needs to be more dumpsters, and we're going to have more dumpsters. This year our goal is 15 each, and we're going to dump them more often. But one of the main problems, if it's okay me saying this, is people are still using our river as a toilet. And hopefully in the years to come, we can educate them. If you have to go to the bathroom, don't do it. Do it appropriately. Bring a porta potty with you. Take the time and go to the porta potty, and that and it's a process, probably a 2 or 3 year at least process, to get people to really make a definite change.
And that's our goal. Last year that there was over 50,000 people that came to Kernville for Whiskey Flat Days.
Yeah.
Over 4 days.
Yeah.
And you get that many people camping on the 16 campgrounds that we have going upriver between Kernville and Johnsondale. And there's a lot of people. I couldn't give you a count, but there's a lot of people. And if they're all going to the bathroom in the river, that's really bad. I mean, it's not like back when I was a kid and there was only 15 campers up the river. There's thousands of people there, and we really need the porta potties and the dumpsters to help keep that
and that's what I was telling
out of the river.
I was telling my wife that people don't realize Whiskey Flat Days is really probably the biggest event in the area. If you're living in Ridgecrest,
Right.
50,000 people over a 4-day event.
Yeah.
And all the hotels are booked, all the campgrounds are being used, and you really got to get up there and experience
Yeah.
it to see what
It
that's
is.
like.
Yeah,
It's
you do.
incredible. It
Yeah.
is an incredible experience.
amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now let's talk just for a minute. Nui Kuni is the cultural center with
Right.
the intertribal. There's multiple tribes up in the area that use that, and,
Right.
and you're going to be helping to support them and their cause.
Uh,
Do you have anything special with the Nui Kuni as far as your experience with them, or?
Well, yeah, they have there's a little museum there. It's a museum and a craft area where people can come in and do crafts. We have craft days every Wednesday and Sunday. They have the museum where a lot of different people have donated their artifacts to be displayed in different different areas of the museum there. They have on Wednesdays they have a potluck and a craft day where you can learn how to make pine needle baskets, gourds, and then Sundays are usually a specialty thing. You can come out and learn how to do a gourd drum, or you can make a
Okay, we're going to have to go to break,
Okay.
but really learning a lot of Nui Kuni, and we're going to be right back. Ridgecrest Talk. Thank you so much for sharing that.
welcome.
All right, this is Ridgecrest Talk, your host Paul VenderWerf. I got a couple of characters here from Kernville talking about Whiskey Flat Days, February 13th to the 16th. Rockin' Rex Hinkie and Jelly Belly Joel Walling. I'll tell you, I'm having a hard time keeping a straight face on our breaks because we're telling stories and talking about different stuff. But we talked a little bit about these groups, Keepers of the Kern,
Yeah.
which is keeping the upper river clean from the Kernville Bridge up all the way up to Johnsondale.
Yes, and eventually we'll do the lower river. We're working hand in hand with the
working
Forest
hand.
Service.
Right, so you're tackling that portion
R-
first
right.
to really get that under control.
Exactly.
And then Nui Kuni, which is actually it's right on the road between the dam from Lake Isabella to Wolford Heights, and it's got this beautiful view overlooking the lake. It's got a lot of traditional native things
Plants.
going on there, the plants
Right.
and the sweat lodge and all these different things, as well as the activities. The
Right.
Wednesday food along with all the arts and crafts is one of the highlights, and then on Sunday there's lots of information there,
Lots of information.
and that's a great group also. But now what we want to focus on is we want to let people know on Whiskey Flat Days what's going on for those 4 days and how do people come up and get involved. So we have a parade on Saturday morning?
We have the big parade Saturday morning. Starts at 9 o'clock, 9 or 10.
Somewhere around that.
And there's like 60, I think there was 60 or 70 entries last year. Last year, Keepers of the Kern had a float. We're going to have Keeper Brothers are going to have a float, and Keepers of the Kern will have it. The Krem kids are doing the float this year. The
Pretty guys.
Kern River
Well, you got
Environmental
a
Attic.
small route and
I
you got a
had- I
ton of
was taking
people.
Oh yeah, it
It's
takes.
shoulder to
small
shoulder,
ride,
right?
but
Yeah.
It takes a long time.
Yeah.
I was taking pictures, and I bet it lasted at least an hour.
Oh, it does.
Oh,
Yeah.
easy. For
So
all the
it-
floats to go by and everything. So
Then in
nice
in
parade.
Riverside Park, one of the things they have that is kind of cool for the kids. The fish hatchery brings a big 12 or 14-foot diameter pool. It's about 3 or 4 feet deep, and they fill it with nice trout about 16 to 18 inches, and they let them catch the fish, which is pretty cool. Then they have those bouncy rides with the big air in them. I don't know what you call them. They blow them up
Right,
with
the
air.
bounce houses.
Yeah, the bounce houses, and there's vendors all over town. There's you could and so much food it just drive you crazy. And then in Circle Park they have the art. There's vendors in Circle Park there in town where you can buy things
Arts and crafts.
Arts and crafts. Yeah, right. Thank you.
And then also you have the reenactment going on.
Oh
back
yeah,
by the,
yeah.
What do they
Around
call
the
that area?
river,
The
just
rodeo
around the
grounds
corner.
area?
It's called Whiskey Flat the encampment.
Whiskey
Okay.
Flat,
And it starts the far end of it is the Indian encampment. Then there's the Mountain Men encampment, and then there's the cowboy encampment,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes a little later in the time period. And what do you call it? It's all
Well,
period?
that's Civil War.
Okay.
They have that, but the cowboy encampment, the interesting about that is it's period. It's all period thing. And the period is about the time where Whiskey Flat was originated in the 1860s. So everybody in that encampment, they're living in the tents like they did back then. They're cooking on the same type of utensils. They're wearing the clothes from that period.
The talk.
And
They talk like it.
you know, they
They get
talk
into
like
the,
it.
get in the spirit.
Yeah, they do.
They even have, there's even a spot where this is a saloon, it's a tent with 2 whiskey barrels and a plank.
Yeah.
And that's where that's the saloon part of it. And,
And,
you know.
and
probably the one question I hear from people that are new to the area is, why do they call it Whiskey Flat? That's a question we get. from
Whiskey Flat, I'll let Joel, it's a colorful name. He knows more about the origin of that name than I do.
Yeah.
But I would like to say one thing before we get too carried away with that. This year at the encampment, you got a brand new mine shaft that is just going to be awesome. So you got to come and see this. The gentleman has made an actual, what looks like a mine that goes under the road. It's got a railroad track with the ore bucket on it. Got to come see that. That's
like
going to
they
be
did
awesome.
Back in the days.
But
Yeah,
the
you've seen
name-
a lot of the history of the area.
Oh yeah, but the Whiskey Flat name.
It's my understanding that it's come from, you know, my cousin. She's lived there all her life. She works at the museum, and from what I understood is that in Keysville and Bodfish area were the original mining claims. That's where everybody came to gold pan in that area. An old miner was checking out other areas, and he was in around the Kernville, the old Kernville area, which is probably around Wofford Heights, just north of Wofford Heights. And his donkey got away from him. And the story goes is that he was chasing his donkey. He finally got upset. He reached down to grab a rock to throw at his donkey, and there was gold in it. And so he brought it into town, and then I think it was Mr. Sumner or somebody, they started mining it. But after that happened, so they got this mine going. And guy in Keysville, or somewhere, I think pretty sure it's Keysville, he brought 2 whiskey barrels and a plank and set it out in front of the mine shaft. And he was selling whiskey to the miners. Well, they were getting drunk and not working too well. So the owner said, no, this isn't happening. And they told him in so many words, you go down on the flat, so we're going to take you down on the flat. So he went down there. And the miners wanted to be close to the whiskey. So they set their camp down there. And eventually that turned into, they called it Whiskey Flat. And it became a town. And later on, I'm not sure how much later on, they wanted to get a post office so they could get mail and going in there. And there's been 2 stories, several stories. A couple I've heard is the post office wouldn't give them a post office with Whiskey Flats, so they had to change it to Kernville. And then another story is that the ladies didn't like the town called Whiskey Flats.
Demon rum.
To accommodate the ladies, they changed it to Kernville. So those are the stories that I've heard.
So it became a little bit of a more politically correct.
Yeah,
name,
pretty
Kernville,
much.
instead of
Yeah,
Whiskey Flat.
yeah.
Right.
So that's what they say: whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. And that's kind of one of the old sayings I
Whiskey's
hear
for
from time to
drinking,
time.
water's
But
for
we
fighting.
got the 13th through the 16th. We have
Right.
some parade on
Yeah.
Saturday morning.
Yeah.
We have events running all weekend.
Yes.
We have
Weekend.
a lot of the activities for the kids,
Oh, yeah.
like the contests, are
Yeah.
in the afternoon on Sunday.
Right.
But to find out about all
Frog
these
race.
groups,
We have a frog race.
a frog race.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, there's a
do
frog
they bring their
race.
own frog, or they got frogs there?
You got frogs there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can look on the internet.
Yep.
You got Facebook, Keepers
Yep.
of the Kern, Nui Cooney,
Yep.
Whiskey Flat Days.
Yep.
The
Huge event.
KRVR, which is actually the Kern River Valley Revitalization,
Right.
also publishes listings that have everything that's going on. So
Yes,
you can
they
look up
do.
KRVR
Yeah.
on Facebook as
Right.
well.
Right.
And there's just a ton of stuff up there. I
Yeah,
really
there is.
appreciate you guys coming down.
Yeah.
Appreciate
And
that.
it's been a great time talking to you.
Yeah.
And people can actually go up there and find you guys up there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Vote, vote with their dollars. and
Well, yeah,
Vote with your
dollars.
dollars, yeah.
By Sunday noon,
We're going to be
they're
wandering
gonna be-
around the town.
Yeah.
They're going to be adding it up Sunday afternoon, and then
Right.
we're going to find out who the mayor
Right.
or co-mayors is
Right.
right about then.
Correct.
Right about
Correct,
that, From
yeah.
what I understand. Sunday
There'll be
evening.
live music all over the place.
Yeah.
There'll be the guys drive on horses by the saloon and they'll start shooting
All
into
right.
the saloon.
We're going to have to freeze right there. We're out of time. Ridgecrest Talk, have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.